After a brief intro from Katie, we will start the Q&A portion of this. And so you'll be on mute, and you can either raise your hand virtually by popping on that button at the bottom of your screen, or you can raise a hand that I can see visually. Or you can put your question in the chat box, and we will get to those as well, and we'll call on you in a sequential order and hopefully get to everyone today. We are also trying a new platform today for friends, and I'm going to share my screen real quick. You can see that we have a new donation opportunity, and this is texting to give. So if you would like to become a member or donate to friends based on the work that we do, then you can text the word friends to 360-317-2610, and or you can go online. So at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Katie. She is our Community Engagement Director. She's worked with Friends for about 8 years. And I have personally witnessed her working with our students. And I have to say, she is one of the most engaging people. Katie, you have a way of working with students that just makes them so eager to learn and to talk to you. And it's really an honor to work with Katie in that aspect. So I am going to let Katie take it from here. And thank you. It's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, I'm excited about today's session because I get to talk about two of my favorite programs here at Friends, plastic reduction and youth mentorship. It's, of course, critical to work with young people because they're our future. That's obvious, right? Mentoring young people today are definitely, it's going to give our future leaders the skills and critical awareness to tackle all this stuff we have coming at us, right? And to create a more just, sustainable society. And I am just honored to work with all the young people I get to work with. And Kaya Olsen is a true star for me with the students I've worked with. And I'm so excited that she's only a sophomore in high school, which means we get her, at least as a high school student for a lot longer. In this virtual world that we're living in, it doesn't matter that she lives in Spokane, right? We get to keep her engaged, and I'm so excited that she's with us here today to talk about her work that we did together this summer with plastic reduction, and outreach, and she'll tell you a little bit more about what we did, and it'll come up in our discussion too. But I think she's taught me just as much as I taught her through all of this. And you're so talented, Kaya, and all of you are going to get a taste of that today. So having said that, I will turn it over to Kaya for her introduction.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kaya. I was the summer intern for Friends of the San Juans, and going into my sophomore year at high school. And I think plastic pollution is something that started as a school project, really, but then it just snowballed into something that I think about all the time, and it's a real passion of mine, and I'm so lucky that I got to work with Friends this summer about it.
Great. Okay, then I think what we'll do is start jumping into our Q&A. I already have one in chat here. And I think this is probably directed to Kaya first. And it says, what did you discover about plastics when you visited the Lopez Recycling and Waste Transfer Station?
It was so nice to go to the transfer station and the Lopez dump. When I was there, I realized that when you put like recyclables into a mainstream city dumping spot like we have here in Spokane, where you just put them in the bin, there's so much room for them to be contaminated, and you really have to be conscious and careful of when you're sorting your recyclables and make sure they're clean and they're going into the right spot in order for them to be properly recycled. And I also realized that there's so much opportunity that those recyclables have for repurposing, and so many crafts that people are interested in, and they get to use that. And I think the Lopez dump is one of the most unique places in that way. It provides an opportunity for people.
That's Great, thank
And
you.
if I could just follow up, yeah, if you all haven't been to the Lopez dump, it's worth a field trip for sure. Raise your hand if you've been to the Lopez dump. Doesn't sound terribly exciting, but believe me, it is. And all the people that work there are pretty impressive. So if we could all use that model, everywhere, that would be great. And I think that's the idea, right? That's one of the reasons why Kaya and I went, is to think more about in her life and my life here, how we can do more about like what they're doing.
Great. All right. I'm looking for any raised hands with a question. If not, we've got another one that's in our chat. All right. The next one is, would you talk about the tiny fragments of plastic that are now found worldwide, even in pristine places such as the Arctic, and how microplastics are now in our food and water?
So microplastics are any fragments of plastic that are under 5 millimeters in diameter, and they can range from those 5 millimeter pieces down to microscopic pieces. And they can end up in our food chain by smaller animals eating them, such as fish. They're often found in fish, but also the microfibers that come off of synthetic clothing, they can get in the air and we can end up breathing them, or they can get into the water stream. And it's a real crisis, because with larger pieces of plastic, it's easier to pick up, but with microplastics, sometimes you can't even see them, and it's very difficult to remove those from the food and water and air.
Okay, I'm gonna go.
And I just, sorry, Michelle, I just posted an article in the chat, just that was in Bloomberg Reports about a week or so ago, that has, of course, the subheadline that, plastic pollution is on track to triple by 2040, but that there are things we can do. And so that's got some good information in there too about what we were just talking about. If you all want to copy that link for later.
Okay, thank you, Katie. All right, I have Janet Alderton with your hand up. Your question?
My question for Kaya is, these plastics aren't just something that sounds pretty yucky to be eating and drinking. They can also latch on to toxic compounds and act as carriers if we eat them and drink them. So that's a huge deal.
Definitely, I'm glad you brought that up, Janet. I came across a reading that described plastics as toxic sponges, because not only do they hold their own toxins, but they can also sort of take up other toxins in the environment and release them into a new place, into water, food. So in themselves, they're an issue, but when they interact with other toxins, they become even more of an issue.
Mm-hmm. And they are finding microplastics in southern resident killer whale feces. Basically, the studies that Sam Wasser is doing, where they're collecting the whale poop, basically. So we can move it all the way up to our charismatic animals here, that we're all ingesting this stuff, and the killer whales are too. So how that's going to impact us down the road, we're kind of like experimenting with that right now, right? It's pretty scary, which is why we're here today talking about reducing how much we use.
All right, our next hand raised is Sam Olsen. Are you there, Sam?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm muted. Kaya, you're aware that that plastic bags are interesting, perceived as food objects by some whales and certainly some turtles. Can you speak to that at all?
What was that? I think I missed the end of that.
I said I assume that you're aware that plastic bags are perceived as a food source for turtles and some whales, and that I think a pilot whale in New Zealand was washed up with some 40 pounds or 50 pounds of plastic materials in the stomach. I'm wondering if you have a comment about that.
Yeah, plastic bags, they're easily mistaken by whales and sea turtles as jellyfish often, and they can ingest them, and then they can't digest them. So the bags will sit in the animal's stomach, and eventually they can starve to death because they can't get the food and nutrients they need if their stomach is full of plastic bags. And I was reading an article about a year ago, and I did read about that whale that had like 40, maybe even 80 pounds of plastic bags in his stomach. And it was really a gruesome video, but very impactful, I would say. But it just makes me realize that 15-minute plastic bag at the store has so much more impact than just carrying groceries.
Yeah, and I just put again, and microplastics are such an issue too. I just put a link to that study that they're doing with the southern resident killer whales too. Again, it's like the question is, well, how does microplastic, how does it end up in their bodies and in their system? And this helps explain some of that too.
And when we finish this Q&A, we'll follow up with a quick email to all of you saying thank you again, and I will provide those links in that email in case you don't get it copied out of chat right now. All right, I see that we have Toby Cooper with a hand up, followed by Andrea. Toby?
Yeah, so I'd like to go back to the Lopez Recycling Center for a sec. And if you've been there, you see that there's this marvelous system they have where there's different bins for the different categories of plastic. And everybody comes in dutifully and puts their number 2 into the number 2 bin and so forth and so on. There's like 7 or 8 different categories of plastic. And the assumption is it's being recycled. And you pick up something like a yogurt cup out of the number 7 bin or whatever, and there's that little triangle emblem right on the bottom with a number in there. But in reality, that does not mean it's being recycled. It just means that it's of a chemical composition that could be recycled. And in fact, something way less than 10% of plastics are recycled. Most of it is in the category, the 2 categories. One is that the plastic drink bottles, and the other is the PET that milk jugs are typically made of. Those are, but most of the rest is simply not. So, my question is, and I'm also on the board of the Orcas Exchange, so I'm kind of keenly sort of aware of this, but is that how can we make, whether it's the future generations Kaya represents or Friends as an organization that most of us here represent, so how can we make a commitment to either finding alternatives to plastic product, one-way plastic products, such that we don't have to do this, or enhance the recycling capacity of our infrastructure so that we can do a better job?
Definitely, yeah. I think recycling it's one of those things where you have that gratification saying, yes, I'm recycling this item, but oftentimes recycled items will end up in the ocean just as thrown away items too. And I think it's important to recognize that the recycling is good when it's done properly, but the most important thing we can do is refuse and reduce our plastic use, because recycling doesn't always work. And there's only so much capacity we have to recycle things. And I think the circular waste system, I think that's really what we need to be moving forward to in the future, is stop producing this plastic, because it's kind of like the analogy of the running tap and trying to clean up the water while the tap is still running. We can only clean up the ocean as much as we can, but if we're still producing it, it's not going to have an effect. What we really need to do is shut off the tap and reuse the water. I think that's important.
Kaya, that's a great example of the running water. Katie, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, and I think that honestly too, it's going to take policy changes. And fortunately, we live in a county and we live in a state where, we're trying to look progressive toward those kind of, in a progressive way toward those things. We have a solid waste advisory committee meeting today, which I'm on that committee as well. In case any of you ever want to talk about what's going on solid waste wise in San Juan County, we can talk about what we're up to on that committee. You can always sit in on it. There's public commenting periods, but yeah, we're talking about ordinances today that would reduce our plastic. And Towards Zero Waste Washington is a great group that is looking at that on the state level. So I know we're going to start to see more and more happening, but yeah, it's huge. I know the grocery stores here, Annie Lister on Orcas, who's one of the higher ups of the market on Orcas, she'd love to see like no plastic at all, right? And it's just such a hard thing to get around right now, but there are a lot of people here who are thinking about it, and the more community members who are involved want to be involved in it too and want to get your voices heard that this is important to you. That's important. But certainly Kendra Smith at the county are in, what's her official title? She's environmental, what is it, Michelle? Do you know? Anybody?
Drawing a blank right now, sorry.
I know, I am too. She's basically head of the environmental resource department. She is incredibly interested in making our county an example for reducing plastic, and so is Frankie from the MRC. So, and again, it takes your voices too to let people know that's important to you, especially as we're getting a new county council and all of that. So I would say there's good movement here.
Thank you. Thanks for a great question, Toby. All right, we have Andrea next, and then I've got a couple other questions popping into chat. So I will, we'll start with Andrea and then we'll go next.
Great. First of all, Kaya, you're awesome. We know that. But my question actually ties in with what Toby just asked. Since Kaya got interested in the plastics issue, and I've been interested as well, I've been doing a little research, and what I found, which may or may not be accurate, is that the whole recycle plastics movement actually came from the plastics industry because, and correct me if I'm wrong, because the population was pushing back on the excessive use of plastics. So their solution was to promote recycling, even though there was not the capacity to actually complete the recycling. So I think there's a misunderstanding in the public of what actually happens to plastics, and you've touched on that a little bit already, Kaya. So the public information, I think, is really important, because we throw our plastic into the plastic bin and assume it's all fine. I don't use plastic bags, and I only in emergency circumstances would use a plastic bottle. What are some other steps that people who don't live in as progressive a community as you do, or as Lopez is, what are steps that we can take, and have you found are the most impactful small steps that even people who aren't particularly interested in the environment can take to minimize their impact?
I think that often utensils, in the past they've been overlooked, but now it's starting to come to light that utensils, I mean, you think about it, you just grab a spork at school, or in your takeout, grab a fork and a knife, but those utensils are going to be around for hundreds, if not 1,000 years, I think that those are a big issue. And another huge contributor to plastic pollution is the fashion and beauty industry. And so I think as just an ordinary person, just doing a little thing, buying secondhand or buying really durable clothes that you're going to wear for a long time, that's important. And beauty products, they can be really expensive on your wallet and both the cost on the environment. And so just reducing the use of beauty products also would be helpful to the wallet and to the environment.
So with the fashion industry, Kaya, what is the reason why are there plastics used more than I would think in clothing production, or is it more the packaging?
It's both. There's a surprising number of plastics in synthetic clothing, and even in clothing that you might think is cotton, it often is also has synthetic polymers in it as well. And this fashion industry is, it's always the latest thing, and those clothes just get thrown away and they don't get reused, and all that plastic in that clothing just gets dumped somewhere. And it's just important to realize that shirt that you wear a few times, you need to wear it and longer for it to really, you know, for it not to just end up right back in the environment. And yeah, those polymers in the clothing, again, they can release the microplastic fragments and get in the air. So and before it even gets into the environment, after being dumped, it's still releasing plastic.
Thank you. And I have to say, I'm her aunt, so I can tell you she's as amazing as she seems now. She's 1,000 times better.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I want to launch a quick poll here. If you can look at your screen, I'm asking a question. How long can a plastic bottle last in the marine environment? You have 3 choices. If you will make your selection, we had these questions come up from Katie and Kaya, and they kind of want to know where our audience stands and what you think. There we go. Okay, it looks like we've got our votes in, and most of you said 450 years, and that is correct. Thank you for taking that one. And I am going to close this out. We'll have another couple polls as we go along just to assess things. I'm going to jump to the chat because we've had a couple questions sitting here waiting patiently. The first one here is from Jennifer Olsen. What can those people who do not have adequate plastic recycling do in their city? Kaya and Katie?
I think as far as action goes, I think definitely refusing and reducing your plastic so you can just shortcut the whole waste system, but also being vocal to your community about what you need and what the environment needs, because you'd be surprised. Companies and cities and politicians, they really respond to voices and movements and voices come from action and speaking up. So yeah, I think just being vocal and taking it in your own hands is important.
Katie, did you have something to add?
Sure. Yeah, I love that, you know, Kaya, that you're in Spokane. You're actually in it. You are one of those voices in a part of the state that isn't necessarily as progressive in some of these ways, and you're going to be a good example, I think, as we follow you for how you're going to get your voice heard in all of this. And I just wanted to go ahead and put out there too that a program that Friends has been involved with. We're a part of a coalition, the Plastic Free Salish Sea Coalition. And if you haven't seen the website yet, I'm just going to do a quick screen share and I will give you the link, but just to kind of give you an idea of what we've been up to. This was with the Marine Resources Committee, with the Exchange on Orcas, with with the Lopez Solid Waste Department. So all of our community members who are involved and engaged in this got together to create the content for this website. So you can see it's plasticfreesalishsea.org. We'll send you this when we're done, with the meeting today. But yeah, it's a really great resource full of toolkits for individuals, for businesses. If you're throwing an event, things you can think about. Kaya developed a toolkit for schools. But you can see, oh, wait, I'm going to give away some of our questions. But you see community members and what they're doing. So if you want to go and be inspired, there I am before we could bring our bags back to the grocery store, our reusable bags, bagging at my car because I refused to use the disposable bag. So just, things like that. So if you want to go get inspired about, specifically things that are happening in our community and what you can do, this is a resource for you. And of course, if you don't live here too, it's still very much a resource for you to, hopefully replicate some of these things in your own communities. So we'll give you that link after this is done as well.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, and that leads to a question that was sitting in our chat box from Jan that said, Kaya, who started the new website, Plastic Free Sailors Sea, and also how important is this issue to your friends? And she's got another part to the question, how can we get young people tuned into this issue?
I think with young people, or I can speak for myself, it's a really pressing issue because it's one that's going to be with us for our entire lives. And I think our generation will be the first one to really bear the brunt of a lot of this plastic pollution. And I would say of my friends or like my peers around, is that kind of the question? Okay. I would say um, I'm the most interested in this topic, but I find that just me doing little things and not lecturing people about it, but just, saying, oh, look at this cool toolkit I got and that sort of thing has really made it sort of a cool and fun thing that other people are like, maybe I should try that out sort of thing. And I think not going the route of trying to convince people, but just being an example, I think has been really the way to make an impact among other people my age.
Great, thank you. All right, I see that Olsen has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Kaya. I was going to ask you about your high school friends and whatnot. I think you mentioned that you were interested in perhaps forming some sort of environmental committee and group. And are there ideas that you have that you can share with your classmates in high school about how to reduce the plastic that is delivered to the school and thrown away from the school?
Yeah, so my high school does have an environmental club. They've been more focused on like composting and things, but I think bringing the idea up to them about plastic because schools of all places, I mean, that's where we're teaching the next generation to be good stewards of the world, and to have so much plastic in school that's kind of a paradox that you don't want to have, So I think talking to my friends or just putting the idea out there in school or even putting the poster up for now that we're online, maybe just getting the idea out there in one of my science classes or something. Because I think people would be really interested in that. And just, I mean, everybody needs community service hours anyway. And I think they would like it to be something that they're passionate about and something that really will affect them in the future.
Do you think that you can approach the school authorities, approach the principal or vice principal and discuss what can be done within the high school environment to deal with plastics?
Yeah, I think so. I did, as you know, make that toolkit for schools, and I think presenting that to my own school while we're online is a great opportunity because nobody is going to be at the school but the teachers. So it's a time for the schools to not have all the pressures of the students being there to really think about what can we do to make our school more environmentally friendly. It's this, although it's got some pains, this pandemic, it's also an opportunity for us to hit the restart button on a lot of things. And I think school is one of them because we've changed so much in our learning style, and we can change so much for the better in our administration style environmentally as well.
Well, the younger generation is, as you said, is the one that's going to deal with this problem by and large. And peer pressure among your group to the administration is very effective. I can remember attending a county council meeting where some people from an international school in Friday Harbor spoke, and the politicians sat right up and listened because the kids know what's going on, and so you have more power than perhaps many of you realize.
I think youth voices, particularly in issues such as climate and racial justice that we're facing right now, are really powerful. So I think just using that and giving schools, you know, an opportunity to say, this is what we think as a youth, and we'd love for you to support us, and then we can be an example for the rest of the community. And it could be a circle of supporting each other and just making it better.
Thank you, Kaya. All right, Jan, I saw that you had your hand up. You've also posted in chat again. So I see that you asked who started the website Plastic Free Salish Sea, but if you had more to ask, please feel free to.
That's all. I didn't get that part of my question answered, and I was interested.
Yeah, Jan, we friends. There's on the website. It shows you who all the folks are, and I think I'm going to get everybody here. But I've been working closely with the solid waste department. We partnered on the Last Straw campaign a couple of years ago, and so this kind of spurred from that. But it also was very the Marine Resources Committee was very interested in doing something too. So we all kind of came together on it at the same time. So. It's an effort that, as you know, there's a subcommittee on the Marine Resources Committee that helped with it. The solid waste department, the solid waste advisory committee, Friends of the San Juans, the Exchange, and the Lopez Solid Waste. So it's something we've all come together on and have been working pretty hard to put up there. It's the Great Islands Cleanup, collaboration. It's basically that same group too, and that'll now be the website to go to for updates about events and cleanups and all these things as well. We want to try to get everybody under one umbrella so it's easier for all islands to know where to go to think about these things.
Is it fairly new?
It is, yeah. It was just launched about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago maybe now. So yep. So and it's great. And we worked with with Kelsey Kittleson, who is an awesome young woman, just graduated from college here in the islands, to come up with the toolkits, and she really did a great job coming up with the toolkit. So definitely check it out for some inspiration.
So we need to get the word out about it, because it's really good. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Jan. Yeah, everybody, please, get it out there, that it's up there and a good resource.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Jan and Katie. All right, we have Toby has his hand raised, and that'll be followed by a chat question I have from Brent. So Toby, go ahead.
So I'd like to tell you just a quick story that kind of takes this to another level. About 3 years ago, I think it was, in the Orcas Island Film Festival, there was 2 films that really hit home to me. One was about Jane Goodall and how she spent her entire life sitting amongst the chimps and with a clipboard on her lap and a pencil. And she would make little notes and then publish that, this was her life's work. And this is sort of a generational comment, so get ready. And then the next film was called Chasing Coral. And I hope you all see this film or get an opportunity to find out what this is all about. Chasing Coral is about the heat blobs that are attacking the Great Barrier Reef. Here we go, there's Jane Goodall. And that are killing the coral and bleaching out the coral. And there was this group of young people in this film that were aware of this issue, and they launched this program to do something about it. And basically, the first thing they did was design this underwater camera that was this technological marvel. But then they needed a way to put the camera in the right place just before the warm water, merged in where the coral was. So they created a kind of a network of people to watch where this was going to happen, and they'd send boats out with the camera and so forth and so on. Within about a week or like a month or something, they had created literally a worldwide network of people. This was on their cell phones, right? This is all about online, social media communication. They created a worldwide network of people that were spotting where the next warm blob of water was going to attack the coral. And it was such a contrast to Jane Goodall, who sits there with a clipboard and a pencil. And these guys, all these young people, had created this global network. And this is what's needed with plastic, is a global network like this, Kaya. And maybe you aren't going to do this, or maybe you are. but this is what your generation needs to do, because this is a global problem. It's not, it's about more than, it's Katie, what we're doing with, you know, asking people in San Juan County to not use plastic straws is wonderful. But a lot of this problem comes from dump trucks that are backing up to ramps in Asia and dumping loads of stuff into a river every like 3 minutes around the clock, just dumping it in the river, which it then drifts off down towards the ocean. I mean, and so this is what's needed, is a global network of people. This problem is so much more attackable than climate change. Climate change is this huge thing that's going to require all sorts of government decisions and things, and you know, but if we attack, you know, dump trucks one at a time, and we get a global network of people that can be notified when and where to go do that, and this is doable. So that's my challenge to you guys, is let's, you know, I'm on the generation of pencils and clipboards, but this is your day, guys, and we're going to do this right. And so more power to you. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Toby. And I just want to say too, you know, another thing to not forget about is the connection to climate change here. You know, addressing our plastic use is certainly, and making our oceans healthier. And, you know, of course, you know, what is plastic made from, right? It's made from fossil fuels. And so it's all so incredibly connected to, you know, the xylene facility in Anacortes that Friends was involved with, you know, our coalition of partners in basically canceling, right? That was a huge thing, because xylene is what is shipped to Asia to make plastic, you know? And so certainly it's a shipping issue, and it's an oil spill issue, and it's a pollution climate issue, but it was also very much a plastic issue too. So it's pretty amazing as you think about the interconnections here of how everything really is connected to these huge, huge pictures internationally.
Definitely adding on to what you're saying, Katie, not only is it connected to issues within the climate realm, it's connected to issues, it's a public health crisis. It really is. I was reading an article that so much PPE is ending up in these underdeveloped places in Asia, and these like trash pickers, that's their job. They have to work with all this trash, and it's really dangerous for them because the virus can survive so long on plastic compared to paper and fabric. And I think these issues, they're all connected, and if we work to solve one, it might end up starting this solution to another. And I think viewing them separately is what we need to do, is view them as an interconnected sort of web, because if we all work together in solving one, you know, it's a chain reaction to solve the rest of them.
Thank you, all of you. All right, we have a chat here that says, it's from Brent. It says, Kaya, first, thanks for sharing your thoughts on all of this. You mentioned that this has been a summer internship for you. What are your next steps in continuing this effort after your internship ends?
That's a great question, Brent. Thank you. I would say I'm so lucky to continue working with Friends, actually, even though my official internship was just for that month, because we're all virtual anyway. And, you know, since I'm in Spokane, I can still work with Friends, and I'm really lucky and glad to be able to do that. I would say branching out from that, just working on community awareness here in Spokane. We are less liberal and less progressive than I would say some cities on the west side, but I think that gives me and other environmentally aware people more room to sort of encourage people to do that, because that hasn't been done as much before. So I would say my next steps would be community awareness, and you know, just making people know that this is a crisis, and that the pandemic isn't the only crisis that's out there right now, and it is connected.
I just want to, I'm hoping too, just for all of you to kind of keep an eye on, I think Kaya would be a wonderful person for us in Olympia, in working and talking with legislators and about legislation and policy that we could create in our state. So That's one of the things I enjoy about our youth mentorship program is going to Olympia every year. And I think that Kaya is going to be a really good asset if she's willing to do that with us. So
I would love that, definitely.
That's great. Okay, so we have a follow-up question for Katie from Brent, and it says, it's back to the website. Now that the website is live, what are the next steps for the Plastic-Free Sailor Sea initiative?
that's a great question. Yeah, I think one of the most immediate steps is we're going to start planning the fall Great Islands cleanup together. We didn't get to do our big spring one, obviously in April, and so I think we're going to be able to do a nice socially distanced cleanup, and so that's going to be hopefully a good community coming together around just reducing plastic here. But yeah, we definitely, it's policy. It's going to be policy change is going to be the big thing. Now that we have some information out there, some toolkits that businesses especially can start to think about using to reduce plastic. Of course, we wanted to do more education first to get people wrapped around the idea of how to make this happen and give them options and ideas. And I can see that now we're going to start moving towards some policy change in San Juan County too, which this will be, kind of a good resource to give to people to help them understand how to make those changes that will be required.
Great, thank you, Katie. I have a question from Nan and Ron, and they are asking, is there a movement to move away from plastic and back to glass or paper?
I would say glass, not so much. I would say the reusables that people are bringing themselves has been sort of modified with COVID. So I think it's in the past before COVID, I think it was some coffee shops, would bring your own mugs or something like that. And I think paper also, like utensils and cups, and there's been recent developments in truly compostable plastic, not just the greenwashed biodegradable, when the universe explodes sort of biodegradable. There's, like actual developments in compostable plastic made from plants. And so I think that's kind of where it's been moving into also like bamboo utensils. I know friends had a bamboo utensil sort of kit, here you go, that they had to give out as gifts at the 40-year anniversary. So I would say that's, that seems to be where it's going.
Great. Okay, we have a question from San, and then we'll go back to a question posed in chat. So, San?
Thank you. I was, during free association of your discussion here, I was reminded that at our 40th, we gave away the bamboo spoons and fork and metal straws, and I'm wondering if those kind of kits could be made available to the people who don't live in San Juan County. If there's some way to post on the Friends website the way that people can procure those, that would be a thank you for joining us today.
So I can go ahead, Kate.
No, you go. You had a big.
So I was going to say, yes, those utensils are made available when you make a donation to Friends. You can either, well, you used to be able to come in and pick them up, but we can drop it in the mail to you. And Katie is showing you what's included. This utensil package was created in conjunction with a high school student. Her name is Bella Bajors on San Juan Island. And it was one of her projects to get out there and make a difference. And it's such a fine example of what one person can do to create change. We bought thousands of those from her and gave them out during our 40th events. And so if you would like one, we can get one to you. And with this little segue quick, I'm just going to launch another poll that was a curious question about utensils. So
before you do that, Michelle, before you do that, Katie was waiting in the background because you were the featured speaker. So if she could say something and re-show those utensils. Katie, say something so you're front and center.
Okay, okay. All right, and then we'll do our question. But yeah, you can see they've got a straw, they've got a fork, they've got a knife, there's a spoon in here. There's actually 2 straws. Like if you like the bendy straw, there's that one, but the one that bends over, there's a straight one too. So yeah, and then it comes in a little case. And I keep it in my glove compartment. And it's great. So that's what we've got. Let's work out okay.
Okay, there's a quick poll for you. Okay, I'd say that's a great response. So we're seeing that how many of you use reusable utensils? Yes, 62%, and sometimes 38%. And there were no answers. So that's fantastic. Thank you. Okay, I am going to go back now to the chat. And this one is from Jan. Is there a need to talk to our local grocery stores? Did you say that? Or do you think that, for example, Lerner and Annie are aware enough?
I think Lerner and Annie, I think on Orcas, your grocery stores are aware enough. I know, again, just from knowing them personally, that they would always love to do more with some, they're all, all of the grocery stores are in on these conversations that are had. And so as far as being progressive about this, I think they're pretty on top of it. But if you see a place where certainly but I'm not there and I know that of course they can't think of everything, so it never hurts to make your voice heard if you're seeing something that you'd like to have addressed. But yeah, and even here on San Juan Island, I mean, we still have the heavier duty plastic bags. That's another ordinance that we're constantly looking at whether or not we should put out there, is to say no plastic bags whatsoever. However, the new state one that was just passed the past legislative session that would, it's a reusable bag bill for all of Washington state. Those heavier duty plastic bags will still be allowed in that one. And that policy will preclude any stricter policy in any local jurisdiction. So we're trying to figure out if it makes sense to spend time on creating an ordinance here when it's just going to be able to be, brought back again. However, there may be something to it where if our stores change here on San Juan Island now, maybe they won't go back. So that's definitely a conversation that we're having. So I'm very in touch with the stores here. I think, again, but if you see, I'm constantly, when we got to bring our reusable bags back to Marketplace here, I walked in there and like about 5 employees were like, Katie, you can bring your bags again. Because I think they were tired of seeing me put my groceries back in my cart and take it out to my car and spend like a half an hour. But anyway, so I think that the stores are listening and we're all pretty connected, but there's always, something that maybe they're not recognizing that could use the help.
Thank you.
All right, we have one more question. This is kind of a dual question for you guys because I have one in chat from Nan and Ron, and it says, what about producers? We used to have reusable Coke bottles. And a second part to that question that was in another chat is, as consumers, how do we motivate change to find alternatives to plastic? So that has having to do with that production piece. Can you guys speak to that?
I would say having that old reusable Coke bottle, where you turn in the bottle and you get a few cents for each bottle. I think that was really incentive for the community to take action and be responsible for their bottles. And I think giving an incentive for that to return the bottles to the company, that would be, that would really help. And I think going even further than that as a government policy change is giving incentives to the actual company in order to do that, to make it not only it is the right decision but to make it economically viable and to give a reward for doing the right thing, I think is really important for both the producers and consumers.
Is anybody on the call from a state that still takes bottle deposits? I mean, I know, I'm pretty sure Oregon does, but I mean, it's still possible to do that. There are states to do that. So that's something, you're right, Kaya, to look into policy-wise. You know, you can do milk here. We get milk in glass bottles and return the containers. You can do it at Marketplace and at our co-op here. So there is that happening. But yeah, that's a good, and glass too, right now, if you're not aware, for the recycling market, it does not have a good market. So right now, glass is being put into inert landfills, basically. It's still not something toxic that like plastic, that if you know, your food could be, it's a way better thing in that sense, right? To buy in glass because of the toxic issues with plastic, but it's not going to be recycled right now because the market's not good. So reuse for everything is where we need to be moving for sure.
Okay, thank you. We have time for one more question, and I see that Janet Alderton, you have your hand up.
Well, Nan and Ron had their hand up first, so I'll defer.
I'm sorry.
No problem. I was going to say that we lived in Denmark in the 70s, and they had in each grocery store a place where you would put your beer bottle, your empty beer bottle, and recycle it, and they'd reuse it, and they would use it until it wore out. And that's how we used to do Coke bottles. And I think we really need to work on getting companies to use reusable kind of containers like that, instead of, you know, we all try to do our best with recycling plastic, but we really need to get away from all the plastic bottles and go back to glass and to other things, and reuse them.
Okay, Janet, did you have a question, or was that a highlight for me?
Yeah, I think that Nan is right on. There are some other options. We were going to have a glass crusher on Urcus that we purchased, so we could take the glass and turn it into a product that could be used to make concrete and other materials that are expensive. But the pandemic interrupted that purchase. But there's one in Fiji that some of our Orcus recycling members went and checked out and decided it would be a good thing for an island. But there also was legislation at the state level that didn't pass to require all manufacturers to take back their packaging and deal with it responsibly. That's another idea.
That one's going to come back again too. I think a lot of the ones that didn't pass last legislative session will come back in this one. And you know, one thing that I just want to put the words out there, we've said it a few times, is compost, right? And then that's another thing that we are looking at. I think that, you know, as the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, Friends of the San Juans, like we're all trying to, I'm working with students on that issue in our community as well. They did a community project last year about feasibility of compost and what that could look like. And so I think that's going to be another way to move our county, and not just our county, but anywhere that's doing it, right? Move us forward with reducing the amount of waste that we use. Because again, it's hard to ask like a business to use compostable products when those compostable products are just going to be going to the landfill anyway. You know, to spend more money on these products when there's really nowhere for them to go. So that's another huge piece for me personally for my work in solid waste at Friends, and also on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. And again, that's on the agenda today with the Solid Waste Advisory Committee too. So stay tuned. And I think that that's going to be a huge place for people like you to come to speak about, because I think that if we actually get to the point where we're looking at creating industrial scale composting in our islands, there are going to be a lot of questions people are going to have about smell and, you know, rats and seagulls and eagles and, you know, all those issues, which I think can be addressed, but we're going to need a lot of positive people speaking about it that know the answers to those questions, knowing that this will certainly be done with as little impact as possible if and when we can do it. So stay tuned on that too. And I think it's great to have all your email addresses now. And hopefully you're all engaged with Friends anyway. We'll keep you posted on these opportunities to become involved as citizens who care about waste reduction and these things.
Thank you, everyone. Kaya and Katie, thank you so much for your time and your efforts on behalf of trying to reduce our plastics and our reliance on plastics. Your knowledge, your passion, your dedication are all so, so admirable. You know, at Friends, we know how important it is to engage and mentor our youth. I think you've seen a great example of that today. They will be addressing greater environmental impacts, and we must have a future filled with informed and innovative young adults, as Kaya is an example of right now. So I want to thank you for joining us. I will send out links and Katie's contact information. We hope you really have enjoyed learning about this work, and we hope that you will support it. Become a member or make a donation to Friends. I'm going to pop it into the chat, and I'm going to do a screen share real quick here. So thank you, everyone. And if you have more questions, you know, always feel free to reach out to Katie. I'll include her email. And thank you so much. Everybody have a great week.